Hello and welcome to a PMI hot topic discussion. Today I am joined by my colleagues Anthony Richardson and Dennis Cromentine-Marsh, and we are seeking to enter into the fray of this week's really hot topic, DeepSeek AI. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 7 days, some of you may have hopefully heard of DeepSeek and the furore that this is causing in the AI world. I mean, as if we weren't talking about AI enough already, we've now had this massive event that's even got Donald Trump on the case, commenting on it earlier in the week. We've had $1 trillion written off the value of many of the world's leading tech companies in a single day on Monday. And it's number one on the Apple App Store downloads in the US and possibly other places by now. So there's definitely something here to talk about. Not only is this the hot topic in terms of AI, but then we've had this disruption coming on. So I've asked Anthony and Dennis to join us for this brief discussion now, which is live on all of our channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you do want to enter the fray and add into the discussion, please do. We'd love to hear from you. I've asked Anthony and Dennis to take two opposing positions on this. Should we fear it is sitting with Anthony, and should we embrace it is sitting with Dennis. And I'm going to attempt to mediate between the two of them. But before we do that, Anthony, I'd like to give us a quick overview. There's so much jargon around AI at the moment, and things seem to be coming at us from every direction, at every opportunity. Give us a feel. What is DeepSeek AI? And second question I'd like you to answer in the same part is what's different about it?
Yes, perfect place to start. So DeepSeek AI, if you've used ChatGPT, if you have used Google Gemini, if you've used any of the large language models that have been taking the world by storm for the past couple of years, and you go and look at DeepSeek, you will see, well, this is the same thing. And I think that's a fair place to start. It's another one. Why is it different? Well, there's three main things to think about with DeepSeek. The first is who created it. So it's been created in China. And not that there's anything wrong with that. That's perfect. It's good. It's great that the world is accelerating in this respect.
Yet I
But
can't help think it's one of the things that's accelerated the discussion, given the
and
political sensitivities, the change of governments around the world. It's an interesting one, isn't it? An interesting extra dimension.
it's an interesting extra dimension, which leads us on to the second dimension. Up to now, well, rightly or wrongly, to try and control this technology and its evolution, there's been severe restrictions put in place as to the amount of hardware that Chinese teams were able to use to train these models. And necessity being the mother of invention, the claim now is that this model has been trained without any of the masses of hardware that the big seven, the original tech firms in this AI space have been using, and
And
all of
this
the
has been
investment space
driving a
now.
lot of the European and US chip manufacturers' values and sales forecasts through the roof,
Mhm.
isn't it? And fundamentally, that's about restricting the technological means of delivery. So what's different technically about why is the furore this week then, Anthony?
And that brings us on to the third one. So for much less investment up front, much less requirement, um, not only are you able to produce the same model, but you're specifically able to recreate one really interesting piece of functionality, which is the reasoning capability. And I didn't become personally concerned about DeepSeek until I saw that no, this includes reasoning. This takes us right to the bleeding edge of where the likes of OpenAI are. And the reason I think that's really important is because I'm going to borrow a quote from Sam Harris here that intelligence, not just the prediction of words, but the ability to reason, is either the source of everything we care about as a civilization, or we need it to safeguard the things we care about. So the
Haha.
real value
Okay.
in AIs for me isn't the response they're giving you, it's how good is their reasoning. That's the thing to keep a track on. And so leapfrogging to the front of this industry in that domain for a lower barrier to entry, and then making all of the blueprints to that open source, I think is a very significant move.
Okay, so what I'm taking from that is what's different, the reasoning capabilities, the open source element of it, and the cost or the lowering of those barriers of entries, particularly around the alleged, and at the moment it is
Yeah.
a bit unknown. We're only 5 days to 7 days into this, aren't we? It's alleged that this hardware is all cheaper, and I know there's plenty of conspiracy theories about how this is happening. And I noticed this morning Bloomberg are reporting that allegedly again Microsoft and OpenAI are launching an investigation as to whether any of their technology has actually been used in the creation of the DeepSeek app. Easy for me to say. So interesting stuff. So Dennis, coming over to you then. On this question of should we fear it or should we embrace it,
Mhm.
why do you think we should embrace it?
So let me go back first to the reason why I got into this job of helping organizations to improve the way they work. And that
Okay.
was the primary reason was all about to take away the noise that we have to carry in the everyday activities of our jobs, which
Hmm.
means that we are not using our brains to improve, to create new, to make better, and to actually do those things we really want to do as humans, which is also to be part of this community of people, of humans, and to grow and flourish together.
So you're
So
describing value add there in our daily work, is that right?
absolutely, absolutely,
Okay.
that this focus on using our brains for what they were primarily created, which is to
Hmm.
make things better,
Hmm.
and also to nurture, etc. So DeepSeek for me is doing that in a disruptive manner. With back to what Anthony said, the top seven of the global companies, where it was literally controlled by a few, which I appreciate has benefits. But what this has done now is democratized the
Okay.
opportunity for any organization with far smaller budgets, again, allegedly, and far easier technological hardware to achieve this outcome of making things new, making things better, and to grow and flourish.
Mm.
And folks, all of this comes with a health warning, does it not? That we, as I've mentioned a few times now, we're only a week or so into this. A lot of this is speculation, and it'll be intriguing to see how this
Mm,
develops over the coming weeks as these investigations take place, as people start using it. So. Okay, we'll come back to you, Dennis, then on the embracing. That's great
Mhm.
positioning. So you see it as an enabler, as another tool to enable greater value to be added by the humans in the
mhm.
workplace. Is that
Yep,
a fair characterization? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, Anthony, why were you kept awake? Not last night, the night before.
Well, again, I'm going to
Well,
borrow
maybe
another.
last night too. You haven't
Yeah,
you haven't updated me on your sleep patterns today.
I slept much better last night after very many good long chats with my colleague Dennis, where we were able to reach a common ground of sanity, I think.
Okay.
So thank you, Dennis. But no, I think so. My reaction, now that I've got a clearer, less emotional version I can give,
Hmm.
is for me. I'm going to again borrow words from Sam Harris. This is around a failure of intuition.
Right.
Um, I listed those four key differences for a very specific reason. Those four differences are each also sources of fear individually. So let's pick them up one by one. The first one, it's from China. Now,
Hmm.
that doesn't scare me. Now,
Hmm.
maybe I'm naive, or maybe there's other views out there. For
Hmm.
me, that's just not a concern.
Hmm.
I think this
Okay.
needs to be global. It needs to bring the human community together. So I'm actually quite happy about that, if anything.
Okay.
Um, the second thing about the economics, that's the next source of fear. Oh, it's causing share prices and value to go away. What's going to happen? Is anyone going to buy all of those GPUs from Nvidia? I think they will. Again, I'm not concerned in that area, and I think that that's just a healthy part of the necessary disruption that
Mm.
Dennis was just describing. Where again, I really do agree with Dennis. Um,
And who, sorry to interrupt you, but and who on earth is going to go to an investor's presentation and said, "Oh, by the way, we're backing off all that AI investment. It's just, just,
exactly.
just, just FYI, we're out." Yeah. Okay.
Mm,
Exactly, and I know Dennis will talk about this shortly, but there's all sorts of things you can think about within, well, what's going to happen economically? Are those chips going to go unused? No,
mm,
because
Yeah.
this just changes the equation in
And,
general. But just moving on to that fourth one, sorry, then the third one of reasoning. This is where my concerns begin
mm,
to kick in. I'm not necessarily concerned that it can reason. I'm quite happy. And back to Dennis's point, we want this. That ability for these things to reason. Forget the code they output. Forget if they get better at reasoning, we will be more and more able to utilize and trust them in our organizations and personal lives. That's the thing to measure. Um, but the problem is the stated mission of most of these organizations, and DeepSeek confirmed this verbatim, OpenAI will say this, their mission is to create what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence. That's the game they're playing. And this is just one move along that path.
So
And
just give me that again. AGI.
AGI, artificial general intelligence. Now, to just quickly
General
understand what
intelligence.
that,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
what we mean by that is if we rewind to before the days of ChatGPT, if you ask people in the industry, what kinds of AI do we have right now? They talk about facial recognition and they'd call these ANI, narrow intelligence, artificial narrow intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And the big breakthrough that we were waiting for, almost with this monolithic expectation was, oh, and then we'll cross the threshold to AGI. So not just narrow AIs, but things that can think across disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's been an open question for the last 2 years. Is OpenAI's product generally intelligent? You could feel that way. You could completely empathize with the person for saying, no, this isn't narrow anymore. This is thinking across disciplines and domains, and it's able to do so many things. Have we not done it? Now, the short answer is scientifically no. It's still missing that spark. It's still not truly generally intelligent. But we have no idea how long it's going to take us to get from where we are to general intelligence. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, the evidence seems to show making strides in this respect are very achievable, within a series of months. And so, because that's their mission statement, the reasoning capability we have at the moment is just one step along the way. When you then consider making this open source, we've basically just taken a leap in our civilization-wide effort to create artificial general intelligence anyone, anywhere. And I think that's where the major concern is. Yes, it's good to democratize things, but I have a theory that the right answer is not to openly publicize the weights and the designs of the bleeding edge reasoning models. I don't think that's responsible.
And do you really think it would be sustainable to try and keep that secret or controlled in the long term?
No, I'm actually gonna quote Professor Jeffrey Hilton, who is Nobel Prize winning, known as the godfather of AI computationally, and he did a podcast. So ironically, just a week before DeepSeek was released, and I'm going to quote what he said. He was asked that exact question, and he said, and I agree with him. In general, it's implausible to assume that AI technology could be kept away from people. People are going to discover it. He makes this interesting point about discovery comes from a zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from a general state of knowledge and culture that the world has achieved. And that's why you tend to get parallel discoveries, geographically distributed. If you want to stop people discovering it, you have to get rid of that zeitgeist and all of that knowledge. And we can't do that. So it's implausible.
Yeah.
However, and I'll quote him, it's crazy to release the weights of these models because the weights are our main constraint on bad actors. So specifically, the weights of these models, he believes, and I agree with him, should be treated much more sensitively. You should not be able to go and find them online, just as I cannot go and buy fissile material on eBay.
Okay. So, quite the position of fear there, and things we should be trepidatious of, I guess, is the best summary there. So, Dennis, how do you respond to that then?
So it's hard to argue with the concerns, especially given the provenance of the both Sam and the gentleman
Jeffrey Hilton.
Jeffrey last week. As a matter of fact, this morning, Anthony and I were just reviewing those again and just discussing the so what and the impact of these. Science shows that science never stops. Back to that zeitgeist, the demand, the things will go in the open. I think the key concern, of course, is the speed by which that's happening versus our speed by which we control it.
Yeah.
And fascinatingly, that was Sam Harris in a TED talk 8 years ago, predicting this going to happen. So recognizing that this is going to go far faster than we would have ever imagined it in terms of going from the ANI to the AGI model, this true digital companion, this digital workforce, we better make sure we understand how to manage this effectively. And therefore, I think the opportunity here is for organizations is to figure out how to make sure when we have an AGI model, how we manage it and how we control it, how we trust it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, it may want to do things that it believes are in its best interest in terms of the owner of that particular AI model.
Mm-hmm.
However, they may not be in the interest of humankind as a whole. I think that's where the effort and the opportunity creates. So I think we're having this double stream um, work that needs to take place. And I think so far, especially if you're enthusiastic as us, you focus on the opportunity of the create new, the create more, the create better, the touchless back office, etc., etc. But we
Okay.
forget the constraints.
So let me ask this question to both of you in turn then. So if you're currently working in improvement and you're working with some of these tools and experimenting with some of these tools, what does this mean to you? Anthony, let me come to that question first.
Well, it raises an interesting question. One of the most consequential facts is the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly you have a cost question. Although, given some of today's news, there's been some stability issues, availability issues. I think that will go away. It's always the case with new technology. ChatGPT was unreliable
Yeah,
for
indeed.
the first
Indeed.
6 months in
Yeah.
terms of its availability. But so the first exam question is, well, for smaller organizations or those with a budget challenge, does this now open up a new use case for me? Does
Mm.
that something that was previously just cost prohibitive because we don't want to pay, a couple of $100s a month to Microsoft or to OpenAI or to whoever? Well, actually, no, that that cost just come down by an order of magnitude. So
Okay.
there's a decision for those experimenting in terms of, well, do we switch to that? But then there's a decision for those in terms of, oh, we should pay attention to this in our improvement sphere. Does this now open up an opportunity for us?
Okay. So on your radar and find experiment means to experiment is what I think I just heard
Mm.
there. Is that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Dennis, same question to you. What does this mean to people working on it, improvement practitioners
Mhm.
right now?
So, first of all, generically, I truly believe that our jobs as we hold them today will cease to exist in the shape they are today in 5 to 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So, we better figure out how to reshape our jobs in terms of working alongside this digital labor workforce.
Mm.
So, and that's, I think, what every single SME on this planet needs to be considering because it will basically give us an opportunity to do truly more with less.
Mm.
Specifically on DeepSeek AI, and Anthony and I have both been experimenting with this like for like comparisons. Right now, today, this week, and it's literally this moment in time, the language and the reasoning of DeepSeek AI appears to me at least to be far ahead of, for example, the O1 model of ChatGPT. Just
Okay.
in the way it comprehends, it reasons, and also articulates, therefore, a suggestion. And we tested across a broad scale of from philosophy, deep philosophy, to just how do you boil an egg type
Can
of
I throw in a
question.
challenge to that, Dennis?
Yes.
Because I think I mentioned to you guys yesterday I'd seen Gareth Barlow, the Sky News presenter, do a side by side
Hmm.
yesterday, I think it was. Saw it on his streams. And he was very specifically trying to test out this, working in the press, he was trying to test out this concept of press freedom and freedom of
Hmm.
speech.
Hmm.
Um, and the questions he posed, and I'm paraphrasing, were tell me about the Tiananmen Square massacre. And he asked the two platforms, ChatGPT on one side,
Hmm.
DeepSeek AI. DeepSeek AI suggested, "Can we talk about something else, please?" and gave
Hmm.
no answer. And ChatGPT um, gave an answer that you may expect, which gave
Hmm.
details. And he asked the same question about, the tank man image, the famous image of the unknown person standing in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square. And bearing in mind, we've probably just gone offline now on several of the live streams. Um, that's interesting because it's different standards, but it is something to be aware of with the concept.
I do actually have something to say on that. I think with that it's true, but there's an element of separating the soldier from the uniform here.
Mm,
Um, the models themselves are not interested in Tiananmen Square or the
hmm
politics surrounding it, right? On
hmm
either side, on the ChatGPT side or on the DeepSeek side, what is interested is the data that they've fed it and then the rules and other things that they've put around it in terms of how it should interact with end users. That's the uniform. The
Yep.
soldier is completely agnostic.
Okay.
And so I think what will happen is it's inevitable. There will be soldiers of all uniforms based on the tribes we as humans create. It's inevitable.
And what struck me about that is this question. I know you've posed it in the past, Anthony. Is you know, human AI does need human intelligence. AI needs HI, and there's a real challenge here, though, about layered on with, I think, this geopolitical sensitivity
Mm,
of knowing what to trust. And
mm,
I stepped back from that when I saw that example from Sky News yesterday. I thought that's really interesting, because who is it to say that, who's curating this to decide what we get to see anyway?
mm,
And lest we forget the so-called Western models, the Chat GPTs, the co-pilots, etc., or are already heavily curated along ethical grounds. But there's
mm,
a really interesting debate which
Mm.
to be had of whose ethics.
mm.
Um,
Correct.
I don't know to what extent this is true, but I have heard a rumor that
Mm.
when Elon Musk made his staffing changes at X, a lot of the moderation staff found jobs at OpenAI
mm,
training models on how to do things ethically.
Mm.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's imported from humans.
So
and
just
there's the
to build
thing.
on this, just to build on this,
Go ahead.
if I want to know anything about the British news, I will read a British newspaper, but also a foreign newspaper.
Wow.
Mm,
But
And
yes.
it's exactly to that point. There's things that which are published in the foreign media, which are censored here or filtered here for some reason.
Hmm.
So I think for us, it's about having a far broader access to multiple models
Mm.
to
mm,
come back to what we deem to be truth, which of course is a complete, what is truth in terms of philosophical debate.
Well, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Dennis. The saying that there's the age-old saying that there's nothing new under the sun is true, isn't it? From this
mm,
point of view, the concept of fake news that Donald Trump seems to think he invented was around since humans could write,
Right.
and and even before that, when it was diagrammatical, stone carvings, etc. So there is something in that. I just find it interesting that I think it's something about the speed here,
Mm.
mm,
and the level of, you ask someone a question in a social or a business section. If they don't know the answer, immediately they'll Google it currently,
mhm,
and there's a level of authority with which that answer is delivered.
mm,
Is there not?
mm,
I've Googled it, it must be right. So, what does this do to that environment where you've got two AI tools that potentially produce
mm,
two at least, by the way,
mm,
radically different answers potentially? I mean, it's almost easy where it's just sense and says, can't help you there, mate. But
mhm,
what if it wasn't doing that? What if it was giving you other answers? And this brings us to this learning kind of situation of one of the things that struck me in the narrative this week is that people seem to be surprised that an AI app, an AI service, is learning potentially, allegedly, from the output of
Mm.
other AI services.
I
Did
mean,
we
just
not see this coming?
just to come back to the first point you made, back to quote by George Box, all models are wrong, some are useful. And
Yeah.
back to Anthony's point about human intelligence, we as humans still need to decide what we deem to be useful in a specific situation.
Hmm.
That is no different from anything else we've done in our lives. How do you manage the biases, the assumptions of us? And the best thing therefore to do is to enable us again with critical thinking skills in the
Hmm.
same way that we ought to be applying critical thinking in any environment that we operate in today, like social media, posts, etc.
Okay, so we're heading into our final minutes for this hot topic discussion. Time has flown by. Final thoughts from both of you. Something tells me, before we move into that, that this is not going to be the last one of these. On that basis, final thoughts today on the things we know as of now, Anthony, from you.
um, yeah. The next 12 months again is going to be filled with leaps forward in this technology and what it can do.
You're going as long as
So
12 months. Okay.
yeah, well, the last 12 months were amazing. The next 12 months probably even more so.
Okay.
Um, and I think that people are going to be. So Dennis and I've spent a lot of time tinkering with things like Copilot Studio recently. My quick summary is this is going to really drive people to think about what is the value that they add as they start to get access to these rapid advanced reasoning capabilities. They're going to be brought back to this question of, so what am I trying to achieve then? What's the value I bring, and how is this not just doing my job? There's something special I need to add. What is that thing?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Dennis, from you.
So consider a breakthrough moments with your eyes open. So any psychological inertia that you may have, it's how do we disable that momentarily, go beyond what we deem to be acceptable in the current ways that we work, and therefore seek the opportunity, but do it absolutely with your eyes open. So keep testing, keep studying, keep refining, and like we're doing, make sure you do it with somebody else. So you just have that frame of healthy reference. Are we going in the right direction?
Yes, and I would concur with that. This healthy reference, and I think essentially, my final thought on this would be about making sure that we're learning, and treating this as a learning opportunity, and not, this technological change we're seeing, and not overreacting, and similarly, beware the hazard of underreacting. Of thinking this is just techie noise, and people like Anthony and yourself, Dennis, getting overexcited. It's easy to go one of two ways: to go into a panic state and kind of complete denial almost. And I'm struck by that. I've just been about an hour ago. I was on a meeting with a group of senior consulting leaders from across the UK. And the preoccupation of that discussion this morning was homeworking and the perils of homeworking. I sat there thinking, goodness me, folks, this is not the thing. Of course, it's very current for them. And then on the other side, you've got people thinking that the world is ending because of this development this week and how terrible it's going to be. And the key, I think, is to learn. And great points from both of you. So on that subject, look at this for a slick link. In a moment, I'm going to share 3 PMI live webinar sessions. I'll put the details on screen as we close out, that Anthony and myself, I think we did all of them together, actually, Anthony, delivered, that which you can find on the PMI Knowledge Hub, which is pmi.co.uk. From the homepage, hit Knowledge Hub. So it's pmi.co.uk. Find the Knowledge Hub on the homepage. It's been fantastic, Anthony, Dennis. Thank you both for your contributions today. I'll pop those links on the screen now as we close out. Please do get in touch if you've enjoyed today's sessions. If you've had any questions, queries, would like to debate this out further with us, we are all ears. Thanks both again, and thanks everyone for joining us. I'll put those links up now.